So welcome to our second School Garden Network virtual gathering of the school year 2020-2021. We do plan on having one more gathering this year and this calendar year, and then we'll resume again in February. Just wanted to put that out there that we'll have another opportunity to meet. What's that?
Listed
products. And so I just wanted to start out by saying that we are super excited to be able to provide this chance to gather together as a community, and different than some of our workshops and trainings, we're really hoping to provide an opportunity to talk and kind of crowdsource some of the things going on. And I would love if, as a matter of process, you can most people feel like they have their names, and if you wanted to go in and rename yourself so that it shows your school that you're representing, that would be great. I'm just gonna mute folks for now. If you have something to say, you can raise your hand. If your screen is off, your camera is off, you can raise your hand over in the participants bar. I'll see it there. Or you can raise your hand on the screen, and I'll keep looking around and calling you on you. So my name is Ann Laurie. I'm the program director at School Garden Network. I'm also a garden educator at Alexander Valley Elementary School. We are engaged in K through 6 distance learning, and I have my students for either half an hour or 45 minutes a week on Zoom. And I've been working with some science curriculum with those students. Today we're going to be talking with 2 teachers that are in the county. One is Heather, and she's over at Guerneville. And hi, Heather. And then we'll also have Krista, who's at Salmon Creek. So we're going to learn about some of their work that they're doing at their schools through some presentations, and then open it up for conversations. We'll have some announcements at the end, and just an opportunity to kind of exchange ideas. I know from part of the reason I wanted to work at School Garden Network in the first place is because I do know how much wisdom and how many great ideas exist in this community, and we don't always have a chance to share. And there's not really a training resource out there in the world for this specific type of work. So we're each other's best forms of kind of education and growth in our work. So I'm super excited to have you all here and provide this chance to talk. We are, before we start though, I do want to say one thing. We are, as most organizations and businesses and individuals, kind of really in a pivot to try and understand what's our way forward as an organization, both in programs and also in funding. We're in the midst of starting a big fundraising drive, and we're looking at new sources, new collaborations, new partnerships, new ideas. We're really excited about some of the shifts we're kind of looking at in our programs, and I think we're going to use this as an opportunity to just kind of shake down everything and say what's working, what's not, what are the needs, how is it changing, what's going on in the world of school gardens. And I think there's a massive opportunity because we've seen such a high interest in garden nature and food, and the need for food is real, and the food access is a problem for a lot of people. So really looking at how can we really meet the need of what's going on today in our programs, and then also in our funding, and partnerships. So if you have ideas or opportunity to support us or interesting things that we should consider, then please reach out to us. We're very open and really excited for collaborations. That's our one of our favorite things to develop, our partnerships. So okay, let's see. With that in mind, we'll finish out with some more announcements, but I wanted to start with Krista. She's got a nice presentation ready for us, and I think this is her maiden voyage for some screen sharing. So we're excited to hear from her. Thank you, Krista.
Thanks for bearing with me here. This is my first time sharing on Zoom. Let me click this off so that I can see. Okay, So my name is Krista Gasper, and I am the garden coordinator currently at Harmony and Salmon Creek schools in Occidental. Hopefully we're all in Sonoma County, so we know where that is. Let's see. I'm having technical issues. There we go.
That's a pretty picture.
Yeah, exactly, right? I can't figure out how to get my cursor to work. Anybody have any?
Is it hidden?
Yes.
You might want to the screen where the video or we are the Zoom.
Oh, there we go.
There it is. Okay, you might want to move
Awesome.
that.
I figured it out. Okay, great.
Okay.
So this is my second year at Harmony. Just want to give you a little bit of background about me and where I'm coming from as a garden educator. This is just my second year. So last year during the shift was my first year at Harmony. But before that, I was a garden coordinator at Wright Charter School, Robert L. Stevens School in Santa Rosa, and Northwest Prep Charter School. And I also, for a long time, have worked in environmental ed programs. So that's my kind of how I've come to garden education is through the environmental ed world. I was also a farmer for about 10 years, and I got a degree in food systems. So I've been working in education for a long time, but I also have a passion for food and food systems and ecological agriculture. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about our program at Salmon Creek. We have about 3 components. We have cooking classes and garden classes. We have a farm to cafeteria program, and then we do a lot of community engagement with our families. And this is during the normal year. In our normal rhythm for our cooking and garden classes, we have half the class comes to the garden and we do cooking, and then later in the week, another half comes to another half of the class comes to the garden and we do a garden class. And so and then we switch week to week. And so that's what I've been trying to replicate this school year is how can we do cooking and then garden, and then cooking and then garden. We have a really extensive garden. I don't know how many people have been to the garden at Salmon Creek. Hopefully lots of you. If not, please come when we can have volunteers again or guests. But we have basically a farm on site. And so we do a lot of farm to cafeteria. And our goals, we use as much produce as we can from the garden and the cafeteria. And we are lucky enough that our cafeteria manager actually cooks meals from scratch on site, which is not true of most schools that I know of. But she tries to feature 3 dishes made with our produce. And we have actually been able to grow lettuce, kale, chard, cilantro, spinach, and then some other seasonal items, and like have that be what the cafeteria uses for its food supply. And then we have, of course, community engagement, as everyone probably does. So we're in COVID times, so that's kind of a brief overview of our program. And in last spring, when we switched to not being able to come at school and have to do online learning, my panic as a garden educator was like, oh my gosh, what are we gonna do? We have to do like my desire for my students is to have hands-on learning, direct experience with nature, and be really accessible. And so that's like the big question for us as garden educators, especially, like how do we do that through this method of the screen or through a screen? And so I thought I would share a few things that we're doing or that I've been doing. So I do video lessons that are asynchronous. So I'm not Zooming with the kids. I actually make a video lesson, upload it to YouTube, and the students like send the link to the teachers, which they put in their virtual classroom. And then the students are, for our school schedule, are supposed to have activities that they do by themselves on Friday afternoons. And so that's when they do my garden videos. They're also, I have them take a picture of whatever they've done or a video and share it on their class page. And the teachers have made me a co-teacher so I can look at what the work that they've done and like give them comments. And so in the spring, when COVID first hit, I did things a little bit differently than I do now. My main goals were to still try and engage the kids with nature, have accessible lessons with minimal need for parent support, and for the things that they were doing to be fun and healing, because I felt like that's kind of what we needed in that moment. And so I created a bunch of lessons, video lessons online, which some of them I've given to the School Garden Network, which you are welcome to use if you can make use of them. But I found a bunch of potatoes in my kitchen, and I showed the kids how to plant things from your kitchen. We made nature mandalas, sun tea, bird nests out of just materials they'd collected from around their homes, dried flower crafts. We did a create a creature sort of lesson, or a nature maker lesson. And the idea around all of my lessons has been, how do the kids engage with nature still in a variety of settings? Like, how can I make a lesson for the kids to be able to engage with nature in a variety of settings? So in the spring, I was really just focused on like getting through, as probably most of us were. And then in the fall, I'm trying to more align what I'm doing in class with like our normal garden curriculum. So I wasn't doing cooking activities in the spring, but I have started to integrate cooking back into the curriculum this fall. And the activities that I do are generally, they don't involve screens except for like an instructional video, because I want the kids to have like a brain break and to be like active in the world. The recipes, I try to use accessible ingredients, and I'll get a little bit into that. And all the outdoor activities, instead of teaching like, oh, we're gonna learn about gardening, I'm trying to teach them about the place where they are. Like, there's soil in every place. So like they're exploring like the soil in their yard, or there's animals in every place. So they're exploring what animals are in their yard. So I'm trying to hone in where their place is and tie it into concepts that I would teach in the garden. Also, I really want to use like minimal materials that are just common household items. And I often make my videos at home just so that I have the materials that I have at home on hand. So because I want the kids to be able to replicate that in their homes. And I actually have my 4th through 8th graders keep a journal, and which I gave them a little notebook at the beginning of the school year. And they will bring that, if we return to in-person learning, they'll bring that to the garden when they come back, so that we can have continuity through the school year. That was one of the things my school was trying to achieve, was how do we move between remote learning and in-person learning easily. And then 2 resources that I found really helpful were at the bottom here, backparkitlearning.org, and Life Lab's COVID page were really helpful in finding extra lessons. Oh, my garden lessons. So basically, here, I'm gonna jump ahead. So basically, because I come from an environmental ed background, there's this formula that I was taught to use when you're developing a lesson, and it's 4 parts. The first part is you want to awaken enthusiasm with like a question or a story or a riddle, something like that's quick, like a couple of minutes, to just like inspire curiosity in the kids. And then I focus the attention, like kind of give them some information about what we're studying. I give them an activity that's a direct experience, and then I have them reflect or share on it in some way, or like through a journal or a picture, or like they have to describe what they did. So that's like kind of the formula for all of my lessons. So in garden classes, like I said, I make a lesson, I share it with the teacher. They either our school works in the platform of Seesaw with the younger kids and Google Classroom with the older kids. And then I found, one of the teachers showed me that there's this app called Flipgrid. I don't know if you know it, but it's a way of having kids record a video of themselves, like explaining something or doing something. So I use that for pairing with the Google Classroom so that I can actually see a video of them like explaining what they've done. So these are just a few of the lessons that I did for this fall school year. One is like, I just wanted them to get a sense of their place. And so I had them do a scavenger hunt outside in their yards or in their, or like in a little nature area near their house. I had them do, the second picture is I had them do like a seed hunt at their homes, either in their kitchen or outside, just like finding whatever seeds they could find. And then the older kids had to actually compare two different ecosystems, like, oh, I found these in my yard and I found these in the kitchen, or I found these in a meadow and I found these in the forest. We have a lot of nature in West County, so like it's particularly tailored to the kids that I serve, which they do have nature access. Whereas before, when I worked in Santa Rosa, a lot of the kids lived in apartments, and that's a little bit of a shift, I think, in terms of nature access. So my cooking classes, I do cooking classes, as I said, every week. And I do like a kind of a harvest of the month or a harvest of the week video where I'm highlighting a produce item like tomatoes in the garden, and I'm sharing something about its botany, history, the nutrients, any local connections. And I'm using that produce item like tomatoes to teach some concept for the kids. For instance, with that one in particular, I use tomatoes as a way of teaching about eating seasonally. And so you can see I might actually have some pictures of that. So the first picture is like, I was telling a story about my grandpa and how he used to make tomatoes, and then like I gave the second picture, I gave them some history of like, where do tomatoes come from and where do we use them, and some extra history about tomatoes. And then actually the smaller picture, which says autumn and winter in this slide, that was like the lesson about like, oh, we can eat seasonally, like tomato, we make salsa, but we make it in the fall because that's when tomatoes are available. So I'm really trying to, every cooking lesson, I'm actually trying to convey a concept to the kids. It's not just a recipe. And then there's like a step-by-step recipe with the equipment that they're going to need, cleaning up, sharing your recipe. I put jokes in there, or like some closer at the end. Just really, it's a very like thorough lesson that they're about like maybe 14 minutes long. But the idea is that the kids will be able to do the lesson at home with and I really encourage them to do it with their families and to encourage siblings to do my lessons together so that they have each other to support each other, because I'm trying to minimize parent input as much as possible, although that can be hard, especially with cooking. Additionally, so I didn't want to do cooking lessons in the spring because I was worried about accessibility of ingredients for my students. And fortunately for our school, it's very different than any of the other schools where I've gardened. We have a farm-sized garden, and so we can grow a lot of food. And so what we've been doing is actually supplying produce from the garden to our families, or at least making it available to them. So like here, there's a picture of all of our cherry tomatoes that we harvested, and we give those away. Hold on. Let me jump here. So we actually give them away on Mondays and Wednesdays. Any produce from the garden, we'll harvest it on Fridays, put it in the cooler, and store it over the weekend. And then on Mondays and Wednesdays, we have lunch pickups for our families. And so the cafeteria staff will actually also put out any produce that we had in the garden and make it available to families. And that's what we've been starting to do this fall. In the spring and summer, we actually pivoted to like making bags of produce from our garden because we had a lot of produce available, and we gave it to families, like 20 bags a day, a couple of times a week. And so we were really trying to use our garden to support community food security as much as we could. Where am I on time?
Well, I would love for there to be a chance for people to ask any questions. So maybe we can just like pause for a second because you've shared so much. Well, it's just been so rich with like all that you're doing. It's really incredible. And I'm sure that there are people that have some questions or thoughts. And also I just want to give like a little just shout out that it is really nice to see faces if you're in a situation in which you feel comfortable sharing your lovely faces. Then it's easier to kind of have a more meaningful interaction. But if not, that's fine too. So does anybody have, like, first of all, I just want to say, like, the ability for your school to be able to engage in like food security for your families is pretty incredible. And I feel like that's like a high goal that so many garden educators want to have. And I just want to applaud you. I know it's been like kind of decades in the making for your school as well. And it's just amazing and so cool to see that happening. And so,
yeah, and I just wanted to share that. I know like at other schools where I've taught that wouldn't be possible, but I just wanted to share it with this community because I'm like, it's possible somewhere.
Yeah.
But you also have a really supportive administration, parent community, staff.
Yeah, I think there's an interesting conversation to be had around looking at school gardens as community gardens. It's been very siloed. And anyway, Lynn, did you have something you wanted to share?
Yeah, my chat is disabled. I don't know if that's for everybody, but chat might be a good way if people wanted to submit questions as they bubble up and somebody's talking, you know? Is everybody's disabled or is that just mine?
Mine's disabled too.
Oh, okay. That is not good. And I don't know why I can't even do it either.
Yeah. And then also, I just want to make sure that we keep an eye on the waiting room because there's been some late folks and I was trying to chat that to you, but I couldn't. So
it is popping up and I do. Let me, let's see. I don't know. Oh, wait, there's the chat. There it is. It's behind. It's hiding. To everyone. Send chat to, no, I don't want to send chat. I want to everyone publicly and privately. There we go.
Yep, there we go. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No, it's all fixed now. So, but just keep an eye on the waiting room is all
like
I want to know.
the brave new world of all this. Heather, yeah.
I just wanted to say thank you to Krista. I have been a recipient on a very regular basis of all of the beautiful produce that's coming out of the garden. My daughter is in 6th grade at Salmon Creek, and I cannot, like, it's like a week, like I have to go get the produce from the garden. I not depend on it necessarily, but I definitely am so grateful to be able to reap the benefits of our beautiful garden at Salmon Creek. So, and I know that Sue reaps those benefits as well. So yeah. It's an incredible garden. And once we can start volunteering and stuff again, I would very strongly, like Krista said, encourage you to all take a trip out there and at least just go walk the garden. I mean, it's unlike any other school garden I've ever seen before in my life. So
I agree. Tora, I like your comment down here that it was a catalyst for your family moving. I feel like it was a catalyst for me to like really advocate at my school for what's possible, because I feel like one of the struggles in a lot of schools is the mindset of like it's the opposite of a growth mindset, right? It's a limiting mindset, like, no, that's not possible. Being able to have an opportunity to point to examples of what is possible is so important for administrators and teams that are more in the budget analysis side of things than the creative outside the box thinking. Tor, yeah.
Question for Krista. So the coordination with the classroom teachers, can you explain that dynamic as far as who deciding what kind of curriculum and a space for your curriculum in there and what they have? How did you work that out?
Yeah, so our school is like, it's invested so much in the garden, and that's why it's so amazing. And the teachers are really supportive of the curriculum, which I know is not the case at every school, because I've been at schools where they're supportive, but to an extent. But basically, they let me control the content, like the curriculum, the curricular content. Our school's philosophy is place-based learning, which means you learn about concepts from the place that you're in. And so, especially during COVID, they're very flexible around what I teach about. And I have, just based on like rhythms of the garden, I have my own kind of like, we'll do seed saving in the fall, or we'll learn about cycles and seasons. And usually I save botany until the spring and do decomposition in the winter. So I have kind of a, I have my own like rhythm in the garden, which just is based on what's happening in the garden. And so the teachers are generally pretty hands-off with that. And like I said, I'm creating a video for them, and I could share with you, I actually create videos in the Mac equivalent of PowerPoint, because you can make a PowerPoint presentation. I have this a little bit about this, but you can make a PowerPoint presentation, and it's in Keynote, and it allows you to insert audio over the slides, so you can record yourself narrating, and then you can actually export it as a movie. So it's really easy to create a PowerPoint presentation in Keynote into a movie, a film that like is self-playing and loops. And so I just stumbled upon that accidentally on my iPhone, and that's what I ended up doing, and it works really well. And then the teachers, as long as I send them a link every week, because of the way our school designed our program, they just, you know, like they know, they've already put in their schedules, like this is garden time. And so as long as I send them a self-contained activity, they're really happy with that. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, just to follow up, the place-based learning sounds fabulous. Can we go back to school there? But you know, with everybody else sort of checking off standards, language arts and science and all that, does gardening sort of fit into this checkbox of just science? Because it seems like it's so integrated, and you're touching on so many things. Do the teachers, I mean, you guys have such a great relationship, it seems there, that they just know you're going to do great stuff, but is it looked at as a science lesson, or is it just more than that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I bet Anne can answer this more, or even Heather when she does her presentation, because they incorporate a lot of NGSS. And at other schools, it's definitely a science lesson, and I try to do science with the kids, or at least like, you know, like, is it methods and practices? Is that the NGSS term? Like,
Love terms.
Yes, that science, engineering, and engineering practices. Excellent. I try to cover that and like different cross-cutting concepts. So I do my best to like have my eye on those things and integrate those into my curriculum. But I think Anne and like Heather might be able to share more about that.
Yeah, I do want to say that right now at my school, so I am a multiple subject credentialed teacher. And right now, the credentialing offices of the state of California are really looking at programs with a fine-tooth lens. And so I'm being paid as a union certificated staff member. And they're asking right now for me to justify my multiple subject credential being used in what they consider the single subject type of setting. So they're asking for me to either provide an enormous amount of documentation, which I'm able to do because I'm a firm believer it's a very integrated subject matter, but they want to see like lesson plans and like, you know, your scope and sequence and all the stuff. Or they're asking me to go get a single subject in ag, which I don't think I'm not gonna do. And also I don't think that's the right way to frame elementary garden education. So it is an interesting question. And I think that we should all be looking at this as like an interdisciplinary topic. Sue?
I did want to say that I was in some meetings with Krista and some of the other place-based learning folks at Salmon Creek School, and they did bring up the idea of standards, and there is just a notion in the group that not to focus too much on standards for the really little kids in the garden, and really just to give them a lot of time for exploration and play and imagination, and just getting really comfortable for the really young grades. And then as they get a little older, to start really emphasizing the standards. And I really appreciated that feeling with it. Yeah. I also wanted to comment, Krista, that I love your Harvest of the Month curriculum that you're creating. And I've been like waiting for the 2.0 or 3.0 version that is just getting, you know, more embedded with the history and all of that. So thank you for the students. And if you're ever ready to share some of those, I think that people would really love to see more than just tomatoes. But thank you for that. That's awesome.
Yeah, and I'm totally happy to share any of my lessons that I make. I'm talking to the kids at Salmon Creek, but it can be applied elsewhere. And can I just share one last thing about Sue? So one of the ways our school organizes our place-based education is K through 2nd grade. They're really establishing nature connection. 3rd through 5th grade, they're doing more scientific experimentation. And then 6th through 8th grade, the desire for those kids is to do more service learning. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Madeline, Madeline? I'm not sure, sorry.
That's good, Madeline.
Thank you, sorry.
Krista, good to see you. Can you guys hear me? Okay. So I joined a little bit late, so I missed the beginning of your presentation, Krista, but I am curious. So right now you had said that you're doing Keynote. So you're sending out videos for all the grades, and they're broken down into the K through 2nd. Is that, so you'll make a video for the K through 2nd, and then the 3rd through, what was it? I missed that, 3rd through like 5th. So could you just talk about, are they kind of different videos for each class in that way? And then beyond just those sort of videos, is there anything else that you're doing for garden-based education right now for distant learning?
So mostly my time is taken up. So to your first question, I make a K through 3rd grade video, and that's been one of my struggles, is like figuring out how to have the time to make enough content for all of the grades. And so I've split it into K through 3rd and then kind of a 4th through 8th grade. And the concept will be the same, but the activity will be less complex for the K through 3rd graders, and it'll have more complexity for the older kids, like comparing or like doing more journaling and stuff like that.
Are they live? And they're not live. You're not doing a live interaction. No.
I'm not doing live because part of my job is to do the garden lessons, but then the other part of my job is actually to maintain the garden. And that is important for our school. And we have a huge garden, so it's, you know, half time this, half time that. And at this present moment, like, that just is filling up so much time.
Yeah, I've been hearing a lot, and from Annie, all the food and that focus on food security, which is so important to all the families right now. So I'm so like impressed and blown away that on top of that, you're doing, the garden-based education and creating videos as well.
Yeah. And I mean, I will tell you another supporting thing from our school. Sorry, there's a helicopter passing over. Is that our administration has moved some of our cafeteria employees and our custodial staff who have less work right now because we're not in school. They've actually been coming to the garden to help me do maintenance of the garden and to harvest and to actually keep our farm to school program running. So that is huge. And I will tell you, I just want to share that because I know at my old school, that probably wouldn't have happened. The cafeteria people wouldn't have been on board. Maybe the custodial people wouldn't have been on board, but it is possible somewhere. Yeah.
Cool.
We have a request to see the rest of your slideshow, and it's 11:37, and we, we're scheduled to be here till 12:30, and we do have an incredible presentation from Heather as well, but there's time for us to continue to kind of see what else, and then also I wanted to put out, if you would want to, there's some resources and ideas in there. If there's a way to easily share that with this group, we can also do that. And I also want to mention, because we're in the midst of this conversation and there's a lot of really integrated different technology you're using, and I was going to share this at the end, but I also want to mention, because people are popping in and popping out, that Sandra is going to be offering a meeting through her program of what she's doing and talk about how she's using technology to meet the needs of her students right now, and that's going to be on November 2nd on a Monday at 11:30, and we're going to be sharing that information, inviting you to join her with that as well, because at our last meeting she had a lot of great information around how she's doing managing some technology and videos and things like that. So that information is forthcoming, but if you do have to pop off on it, make sure you know that is going to be happening. So okay, but so I'm sneaking in there with that little announcement, but then I want to go back to you, Krista, and see if you had more slideshow to share, and also encourage people to continue to ask questions. It's really great to hear dialogue.
Yeah, I don't have that much more left of the slideshow. I think I had signed up to share about Harvest of the Month, so maybe the one last thing I could share is I made this kind of spreadsheet of what I'm going to teach when in terms of nutrition, because my school has a strong emphasis on nutrition. But this is the harvest that's available during the months when it's available, growing in our garden. That's the harvest that the first column is the harvest, or the produce that we're sharing, the healthy eating concept that I'm trying to convey to the kids through that harvest. We also have the cafeteria. Like I said, they make food from scratch. So they will try to make a menu item with that particular Harvest of the Month produce. I'll do a recipe with it, and then if we're in the garden, hopefully I'll have the kids work with that particular harvest at some point in the month. So I feel like that's the main parts of my slideshow. Also, the food curriculum resources that I get a lot out of are the Center for Eco-Literacy in Berkeley. They have a good amount of nutrition and kind of food systems education. For middle schoolers, the Nourish curriculum, or it's nourishlife.org. And then of course, Life Lab. Yeah, I think that's about it. I want to give Heather time to share too.
Really cool. I know that I've kind of dovetailed myself, right? Just this year has been well, I'm just going to focus on the science because I have some curriculum in front of me I can use, and it's helped. But I missed that part of the eating and that whole journey. And I would love to be able to supplement what I'm doing and be like, hey, check out this video. Why don't you hop in on that train? some really good questions, and looking like, do you have a spreadsheet that you have a recipe list or a harvest kind of month by month? That would be a great way to share. And also, yeah, kind of like last month, if you're willing to share your videos and people can kind of supplement what they're doing in their classroom, it could be a nice way. I also like, I have my screen time with my kids, but I want them outside, you know. Sue?
Do you want them to share on the Google forum, or what's the best way to share all of this, Anne?
The spreadsheet is incredible. I have to copy. Sorry, I'm reading. Sorry.
Maybe in the link in the chat, maybe at the moment.
Yeah.
I'll work on that right now while the rest of this is going on.
You know, we do have a spot on our website where we can, and I can share that with you. I don't have it queued up, but where you can go and put in your resources and information. But that is something we're trying to streamline and make more accessible to everybody as well. So we'll get back to you on that. Any other questions or last comments for Krista? Thank you so much. Yeah, Shoivia.
I have a question. It's not so related, but I'm curious, how much do you think you use your degree for your teaching, your garden teaching? Like, do you think it was necessary or not? I'm just kind of curious.
So for me, well, so I think it would be really useful to have a credential, because then I would understand what is, so, but okay, sorry. To answer your question, yes, I use it a lot because, one of the reasons I got, like I went to school to get a degree in food systems is to have a full understanding of the food system, and I draw on it a lot. I feel like it gives me a really big whole picture. So there you go.
Awesome. Heather, where are you? There you are. Thank you so much, Krista. You shed so much like beauty and light in the world, and we'd love to continue to hear how your programs are going, and we will continue to keep everybody posted on like how to best share your resources with us and get that out to folks so that we can crowdsource some of this. It's a lot of work to create all of this, and so it's appreciated. So let's maybe transition to Heather so that she can share what she's doing, and I'm sure we'll have lots of conversation around that, and then we can have a little more of a questions and answer kind of thing at the end.
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Heather. I am the garden coordinator for Guerneville School, which is very close to Salmon Creek, but a completely different demographic. I'm sure you can all imagine. So my lessons are a little bit different. I do more of a synchronous lesson. So every week I meet with my students on a Zoom lesson with the teacher for about a half hour to 45 minutes, sometimes close to an hour. And I show videos to them. We have conversation about what might be growing in their garden, what's growing now in our garden, when things are I just kind of give them an update as to what's happening in the garden. So one of the things that I do is once a week, I also am recording videos, and I'm using iMovie, and then I post them to the YouTube, and then transfer them onto my webpage on the school website. And I'm going to show you that in just a second. And once a week, I do a science in the garden lesson, and I do a nutrition lesson. So I try to incorporate science in the garden with nutrition. Sometimes it doesn't necessarily work that way, but that's my goal for them. I have a nutrition degree. So Krista and I would make a really great team with the nutrition degree and the ag degree. But I actually got most of my hands-on training at Salmon Creek School as far as learning how to be a garden educator. And I just fell in love with I've always wanted to work with kids, and then I love the nutrition aspect of things. And so I wanted to find a way to incorporate the two of those. And so this was the perfect opportunity. Guerneville School is a different breed. As you know, we are constantly in threat of wildfire, or as we all are, but wildfire, flood. It's amazing. These kids miss so much school, but yet they are thriving like I've never seen before. So when I have my lesson with my students, my lesson is nutrition based. And then we talk really briefly about what's happening in the garden, but that's not the main focus of my lesson with nutrition. So I wanted to give you a little bit of an example of the video that I do. So I'm going to show you a video, and then we can just kind of talk about what that looks like moving forward. So one of the lessons that I did recently was a soil lesson. There was obviously, so for those of you that don't know, Guerneville School is on Armstrong Woods Road. So I couldn't get to school for 2 weeks. The entire area was evacuated. And I thought that my garden was gone. There's 19 raised beds. The beds were constructed by Avalo. And I don't know how many of you know about Avalo. It's a really interesting watering system. It's basically like there's tubes underneath the soil, and then and a bladder underneath the soil, and then there's wicks on top of those tubes. So you put the water through the hoses down under the soil, and then it wicks up through the root system. Instead of watering from top down, we're watering from bottom up. Wow. Which is really cool because it prevents a lot of evaporation and things like that. But the garden is not on irrigation because of that. So for those 2 weeks, the garden did not get watered. And so I was confident, 99% sure that the garden was gone, dead. I was like, I'm just gonna pull everything out, plant for winter, and we're gonna move forward. But I got to the garden and it was alive and thriving. And so I really used that opportunity at that point. I made a video and I used the opportunity to show the children how resilient plants are, and then related that to our bodies and how resilient our bodies are. And my curriculum is all written out for me. So it's on a 3-year cycle. I'm gonna move, there we go. So I have these huge big binders and they're just like kind of a month by month thing. And so I follow this not to a T, but I definitely glean ideas from this binder as far as like what I'm going to teach, when I'm going to teach it, but then how I teach it is kind of all up to me, which is really a nice thing to do. The other thing that I do is that I every week give the students a challenge. So during our Zoom meetings, at the end of our Zoom meetings, I always give them a challenge. So this week, it's not smoky anymore. It's beautiful outside. It's kind of cooled off a little bit. So I challenge them to go outside to look for as many seeds or fallen leaves. Last week I challenged them to hunt for and find leaves of the colors of the rainbow. So that was really fun too. And the results coming back were incredible. They made these collages that showed, they made like rainbows out of the leaves that they had, rainbow collages out of the leaves that they had found. I also give them like food challenges. So I encourage them, whatever the harvest of the month is, or whatever food we're cooking that month, I challenge them to get into the kitchen. If they have those foods accessible to them, get into the kitchen and help their families make food. Because I feel like, and I tell them this, the more they're in the kitchen and the more that they're in touch with the food that they're eating, like actually physically touching the food that they're eating and helping cook the food that they're eating, the more likely they are to enjoy that food and then to pass on that knowledge to friends or family or whomever. Because I think I really strongly encourage them to be as healthy and eat as healthy as possible, which we all do. Sometimes in the demographic that Guerneville is in, food resources are very slim or really not good. They don't have very good food access there. So as far as the soil is concerned, some of the observations that I had made was that the garden wasn't as robust as it was the previous year. It was really jungle-like the last summer that I got there. And this year it was kind of spindly and just not producing very well. Last year the soil was new because the previous winter was the floods, and they had to pull all the soil out of the bed and replace all the soil in the beds. And so the soil was brand new. So I was like, oh, there must be some kind of nutrient deficiency going on. I also obviously was not able to water, and there's no irrigation. The seeds went in late because of the beginning of COVID. I couldn't get to campus. I wasn't allowed to be on campus yet. So seeds went in kind of late. So there were all these different factors that contributed to our garden, the nature of our garden, how well our garden thrived. So with that said, I purchased a soil kit from Harmony Farm Supply and recorded a video over a 2-day period. So I'm gonna show that video now. Bear with me here.
Heather, while you're doing that, I just want to quickly address a comment in the chat that about the videos, and we will follow up with that at the end of your presentation. But I just want to let people know we'll talk about that at the end of this presentation.
Okay.
Go ahead. Sorry about that.
All right. No, that's okay. So let's see here. So all of my videos, I'll just show you this really quickly. This is our Guerneville School website. And every week on Fridays, I update my page on the Guerneville School website. I don't think that many teachers do update their pages on a regular basis, from what I've looked at following. Anyway, this is our class page, all the teachers' websites. Pardon me. Here's my page here. So every Friday, I update this page. I kind of let them know what's happening in the garden, things that are being planted, and then what we had learned that week. So just in case they weren't in class, they can go here and look and see what's happening. And then here are the links. So I leave these up like 4 weeks or 3 weeks prior, and then the current week. This week we're doing salsa making. And then these are links of YouTube videos that I think would be really fun for them to watch, of things that we might not have gotten to while we were in class. So that's how they can get to my page if we're not in class, or get to the videos if we're not in class. Okay, so let's see. Here's the video.
Okay.
All right. Hey everybody, it's Miss Heather. Today in the garden, we're gonna do a science experiment. I have been wanting for a really long time to figure out what is going on with the soil in the garden beds. So I purchased a soil test kit. So what we're gonna do is stick these test tubes filled with water from the soil into this machine, and it's gonna tell us if we have enough of the nutrients that we're testing for. So the nutrients that we're testing for today are all nutrients that our body needs as well. So we're gonna test for nitrogen in the soil. We're gonna test for potassium in the soil.
we're gonna test for phosphorus in the soil. And then finally, we're gonna test the pH of the soil. And by testing the pH of the soil, we'll know if the soil is too acidic or too alkaline for our plants. And so we'll get into that a little bit more later. But what I have here are the test capsules, the tubes that the tests are gonna go into, the test machine itself. I have, I took 1 tablespoon of each soil of each of the soils from the soil bed. And in order to do that, I had to go 4 inches down. So really handy that we have this really cool shovel here that has measurements on it. So you'll see that there's a 4 there with a line. So that's how deep I had to dig in order to get the sample from this deep here. And then we also have 5 cups of water. So in order to do this soil test properly, we have to have a 1:5 ratio of soil to water. So what we're gonna do is we are going to put this soil into the water. We're gonna give it a little stir, and then we're gonna wait 30 minutes to 24 hours to test the soil. So the soil has to settle down in the water in order for the lack of or excess of nutrients to rise into the water. So let's pour this in here. Okay. You can see the soil is sinking, right? We're gonna give it a good stir. Make sure that none of the soil is sitting on top of the surface. And because the soil is heavier than the water, the soil is going to sink to the bottom, right? This is all about density. Okay, we're almost there. If you look at the top of this water, you'll see that the water and the soil are mixing really nicely and that the soil is actually beginning to sink. If you look down here at the bottom, you'll see that the soil is sinking. And the soil will continue to sink for the next 30 minutes, 1 hour before we decide to test it today. All right, we'll be back in an hour.
24 hours.
Hey everyone, it's Miss Heather again. Welcome back to Science in the Garden. All right, so it has been 24 hours since our last video, and we are ready to test our soil for the nutrients. So I have already filled these test jars with the powder that's in these capsules. So I matched the colors. So potassium is orange. Phosphorus is blue. And nitrogen is purple. All right, so we are going to put water in these, then we're gonna wait 10 minutes, and then we're gonna stick it in this cool machine and see what our nutrient density is. So we have a couple of different monitors here. We have surplus, which means more than enough, a lot of nutrient in that soil. Then we have sufficient, which is good. It's better than average, right? And adequate is just, it's adequate, it's great, it's where it should be. Then we also have deficient, which is the opposite of sufficient. So deficient is less than ideal. We want more, right? We want to bring it up to one of these 3 levels here. And depleted means that it's completely void of in the soil. So there is no nutrient that we're measuring in the soil if it comes up depleted. All right, so let's get our science going. All right, so here we go. So first I'm gonna do the potassium, and I'm gonna take my dropper. I'm gonna squeeze the top of my dropper to get it past this upper soil level here. I'm gonna pull up the water, and I'm gonna fill it up to the 4th line. All right, looks like I need to go one more time. All right, so now we're measuring phosphorus in the soil. So I'm gonna do the exact same thing that I did for potassium. We're gonna take it up to that 4th line. Keep going. Oh, there we go. Perfect. Okay, we're gonna give it a shake. Give it a good shake. All right. All right, and then finally, let's measure our nitrogen. Once again, I'm gonna do exactly the same thing all the way up to that 4th line, which is right there. Almost there, almost there. Ah! Okay, perfect. So I'm gonna give this one a good shake. Shake, shake, shake. All right, you can see that it's mixing, and we'll be back in 10 minutes. All right, so we're back. It's been 10 minutes, and we're going to test the soil. So here we go. So first thing we're gonna test for is potassium. All right, we're gonna put that in, and we're going to, potassium is K, correct? Depleted. Uh-oh. All right. Okay, let's take that one out. All right, let's do phosphorus. Here's the blue. Phosphorus is P. Deficient. So we need to boost that up as well. All right, and then finally nitrogen. And nitrogen is really, really, really important for soil quality and important for plant growth. And so I'm really curious to know. So here we go. Nitrogen. Depleted. All right, you guys, so now we know we need to boost up all 3 of these nutrients in our soil in order for our plants to grow to their biggest possibility. So we're gonna tackle that. We'll see you soon. There's my garden.
Aw.
Okay. So I did a couple of follow-up videos, which I'm not going to show you right now, but if you want to see them, you can go to the website that I just showed you, guernevilleschool.org, and they'll be on that page there. Unfortunately, with all the wild, I mean, you can see in that video, those videos were made on the 14th and 15th of September. It was right in the middle of the fire. And but right before I started that video, I had a double mask on, and I mean, it was bad. So unfortunately, because of all of the outside factors that play in soil quality, the soil was not very healthy. So I went back to Harmony and I got an organic soil fertilizer called BioLive. And then I also got another one called Phytogrow. So what we're gonna do, or what I've done, is added BioLive to half of the beds. So the whole garden's been torn out. Everything's been torn out. I've added fresh compost and added half of the beds have the BioLive and half of the beds have the Phytogrow. And then we're gonna do some science experiments in the spring to see which bed has better nutrients. So we'll test the nutrients again. I'll make some more videos. Yeah, and I made videos all the way through with the fertilizer going in and the soil going and the compost going in and mixing everything together and planting the seeds and doing all the things. So that's pretty much what my what that looks like for me.
It's amazing. I love seeing like you in the video, and like we've talked a lot about people doing the videos. It's really fun to see one that's out there. It's inspiring. And there's a lot of questions around the production. Like we have all these like individual little production units around the county, and there's certainly like best practices and like questions around like, what mic do you use, or how do you get the what was the question, the feedback, the syncing of the video and the in the making. So I know that Sandra has done some really great work with it, and obviously you have, Heather, and others. So I do want to say right now that like this is a really great topic that we're hoping to address in Sandra's workshop-y training / informative presentation on November 2nd, which is a Monday. It's at 11:30. We're going to take her Zoom invite and we're going to send it around to everybody, and we can even copy and paste it into our chat box here, and I'll do that in a moment. But last meeting, this topic came up a lot too, so I just wanted to give a chance for people to like ask some questions or share their troubleshooting around it, and or the topic of soil. And I know that Tor has a lot of, we had a conversation about like, carbon and drawdown, and talking about climate change in the context of the big picture, and then like all these fires, like you were just like kind of dealing with as you were doing this. So there's like a lot of different kind of avenues that we could think about, like the work that you're doing and relating it back to our schools as well. So, and also y'all are amazing. Like, it's just incredible to see what you guys are doing. And I mean, like, I wish that we could just like shout out to the whole world. Do you see what these educators are out there doing right now? I mean, is everybody witnessing this in these communities? I sure hope so. So I just wanted to say that. Shoaibia, yeah, did you have something to share?
I just had a couple like little comments, and one is that what I like to do and what I've kind of learned with this whole soil science and things like that is sometimes not ripping out your plants and just cutting them all the way down to where the root starts and just letting those roots sit in the soil. That could have been an interesting third part of that test, right? Like to see the ones that you're adding stuff, but what if you just left a few alone, see what would the natural, thing happen with those roots, because that's where a lot of the living stuff is in those roots, right? So that's kind of,
yeah,
that's what I try to do sometimes.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, that's actually, we'll be in the spring. So I've planted so we have 19 beds, and I planted, I think 5 of them with fava, just as a cover crop to just not only lay down some cover crop, because I don't know what's happening with like students being on campus, that sort of thing, but also for nitrogen fixation. So, and I do plan on doing that. Obviously leaving the roots in from the fava, and then we'll test the nitrogen again, because that's what that's all about, right? So, yeah.
Laura, go ahead.
Yeah, hey Heather, that was fantastic, the testing of all those ingredients in soil. And I've seen this test that tests for soil organic matter. I don't even know what it's called, but it just sort of shows this visual of, healthy soil versus not. And so I wonder if you do anything with that, and then also, are you having the students do anything soil testing at home?
So those are great questions. Your first question, I'm not doing anything with trying to look at organic matter in the soil. If I had access to, I probably could go to the science lab and talk to the science teacher and use the microscopes and then video that in some way. I'm not sure how I would do that, but I'd love for the students. I mean, one of the things that I remember very clearly when I took biology was having to get a water sample, like from sitting water, and take it into the lab and actually like look at the water under the microscope and see all the different microorganisms moving around and stuff. And I would love for my students to be able to do that with soil. But I just don't know that I have the access to do that right now. I think that if we were actually on campus and we're able to go to the science lab as a group, we'd be able to do that. But unfortunately, right now we aren't able to. And then, I'm sorry, what was your second question?
Let's see. Sorry. Just being able to, what kind of things they can do at home.
Oh, right.
Minus all the scientific, whether it's citizen science kind of mode or something.
So they are not testing their own soil at home. I want to be inclusive to everyone. And I have students that live in apartments. I'm pretty sure I have students that live in their cars, unfortunately, or live with people that aren't able to even, you know, go outside. I'm not exactly sure. So I just want to make sure that what I'm asking them to do is inclusive. So instead of giving them like assignments or things like that, I always just encourage them, right? I just say like, here's your challenge for the week. If you're able, you know, go do this or go do that. Most of my students are returning, except for like those TK students. And then obviously we have some new students, but most of the students and that I'm teaching, which is TK through 5, most of them had garden with me last year. And so they know how important it is. I've really tried to instill in them how important it is for them to get outside and actually get dirty, put their hands in the soil. What does it feel like? Is it rocky? Does it feel like there's a lot of clay or silt or sand in the soil? Like, what does the soil actually feel like? I also have encouraged students to do, I live out in Camp Meeker, and I'm a firm believer in like forest bathing, just actually like going outside and taking your shoes off and feeling the soil under your feet. And so I kind of try to like make sure that I encourage them to do that as well. Unfortunately, we can't go to Armstrong Woods right now because most of them would just go to Armstrong Woods and, you know, do that. But those that are able, I definitely encourage them to get outside and just feel the earth underneath them and look and see what's around them and really listen to what's around them also. Yeah. So as far as the at-home connection, that's where I'm at.
Yeah, and I'm curious to hear other people, like how you're managing that, the divide, the equity issue around access to nature. And some people their schools are very rural and some are a little more urban. So what are other people doing to encourage, or how are you managing that? Anybody?
Our kids are, yeah, as Heather was saying, I encourage them to get outside. And in my videos, when I'm saying, you know, go outside today, you know, I list a variety of ideas. You know, if you have a lawn, stand in the bare grass. If you don't have a lawn, you probably have some landscaping. Go look at the shrubs by your building and see what you can see living in it. You know, so I try and give varied options that, you know, would, you know, if you can go to a park or, you know, maybe drive by the library and ask your mom to let you, you know, investigate the plants that are in front of the library so that no one's feeling like I have no access to nature. Obviously the kids that have the yards, you know, are going to use them. So I'm just trying to kind of mention those options so that they feel like, oh, I don't have you know, no one's feeling like I don't have a yard, so I can't participate.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. Anybody else have thoughts or suggestions? I know that a lot of our parks have been impacted by fires in open spaces. So
I was going to say, there's a question here from Misty. You said you give weekly synchronous lessons. Do you have the whole school join, or who and how do you choose? So I'm only teaching TK through 5. In a normal typical school year, I would have like a garden elective for the middle schoolers, the 6th through 8th graders. But at this point, it's just not possible for me to make an extra lesson for them or to do like a teach. It's just there's too many pieces of the puzzle at this point with us doing home learning. So I did send an email out to my middle school teachers to ask their students in homeroom to ask their students to just go on my website and just watch the video. I'm not asking you to do anything. I just want you to know what's happening in the garden more than anything else. And so I definitely have encouraged them to do that. But as far as how I choose, so I have a schedule with my K through 5 teachers, and it's the same time every week that we meet. And some of the teachers do every week, some of the teachers do every other week. And for the teachers that do every other week, I send them the lesson, and then it's their responsibility to give the students the resources or the lesson that I've taught that week. And if they don't, then they're just like, they missed that lesson, unfortunately. But that's all I can do.
Thank you. It's 12:16, and I would love to open this up to like other burning questions that people have, crowdsourcing some ideas, any announcements that may be out there, and just kind of touch in with a few more voices as well. So, and I also want to mention that like Lynn did pop in there to the chat and say that if you have your videos on YouTube, then you can submit those links to us. If you don't and you want us to, we can put them on our YouTube channel and provide the links that way. And you can just email us then an attachment of your video and we'll put them on our YouTube channel. And then Nancy, you had a question about how to use your YouTube channels. And I have found that YouTube is a pretty, once you go through the process once, it's fairly easy to just kind of get your videos up there and going. You set up an account, and I have an account through my school Google account, and then you go in and just upload the videos, and it'll ask you a series of questions like, is this appropriate for children? And I say yes, and that's kind of been my process. Does anybody have is there more to that than that kind of very simple? I'm kind of looking at your little box there, Sandra, and see if you have anything to share.
I mean, I think it's, like you said, it's pretty simple. It's pretty formulaic. I use my phone for my videos. And so I just have the app, and, you know, it's a matter of just hitting a button and it uploads it to my channel. You answer the questions. Is this appropriate for kids? That makes it show up in Kids YouTube, which is a separate app that parents can choose to potentially put on their children's devices. And there's like a warning, you know, not to pick that if it's inappropriate material or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just had a question about that because we just got our YouTube channel last week, and we uploaded the videos that we've done. We're kind of, a lot of you are doing way more than we've been doing with distance learning, so I'm absorbing everything. But I'm just wondering how, you know, this old gray-haired hands-on teacher, all the technology and the platforms and all of that is a real struggle for me. But
you can do it.
You know, I'm learning. So anyway, thank you.
Well, hopefully you can join Sandra on the.
Yes, definitely. Yes, definitely.
Yeah. I did see a question about plans, and I do want to mention that SGN doesn't have that organized right now, but we do have some remaining cover crop seeds if anybody's looking to cover crop this winter. It's kind of our last call, and you can reach out to us, and they're at Avalo, and you can pick them up there, and just maybe want to check in and make sure that they are still there. You don't go there for, you know, if they're gone already, but I like hearing how great the systems at Avalo is working for some of your schools, and anyway, so that's a little great. Yes, any other thoughts or questions? Yeah, Kathleen, if you wanted to, we're kind of, as well at School Learning Network, we're trying to get a sense of, you know, there's shifts in funding, there's shifts in programming. Some schools are giving free license to their current educators to do what they can. And we're curious, is that true for all schools? Are garden educators being let go? Are people still looking to create their programs, employ garden educators, and or build out their garden programs? So we're always looking for that kind of insight to kind of collate that information, know what's happening at the county. And then we have Kathleen here, who's also has a question around that. So if you have thoughts?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask the group. I recently moved back to Sebastopol from teaching in Calaveras, and I actually live next door to Annalee High School, and I tried to get in contact with them to see what garden program they have going on. And I'd love to know, and I don't know if you guys are basically the resource for knowing what's going on in the county as a whole at most of the schools that have gardens, or if there's like a central database for schools that maybe don't have garden educators or garden spaces and they're wanting to find somebody who will start that. Or yeah, I'm just wondering if anybody has information on that, and for people who are looking to get plugged in like myself with becoming garden educators or helping schools out with that type of thing.
Yeah, Shweta.
I could mention a little bit about Annalee just because I live in Sebastopol and I work as a garden coordinator for the two schools that two main schools that feed into Annalee. You know, they have their garden never looks like anything's happening. That's what I've noticed. I'm like, what is going on over there? I know Laguna had the nice little setup, but it just doesn't get, dealt with. About a year ago, they were looking for a nutrition educator, and I saw that. So I think they were trying to do like some kind of marriage between a little gardening and some nutrition stuff, but I just don't know if it ever took off. The other thing they did do, but I don't think they have that anymore, it was like a broad study program in which some students went over to the kind of motor, what's it called? I don't know why near the Laguna, the
community center.
No, it's like the site where people live in kind of motor homes and things like that. What's that called? What's that place called? Like
Village Gardens or something.
Yeah, something like that. Like right where before the bridge leaving Sebastopol, that's where they would do their farm school there. So that was kind of interesting. And I don't know if anyone knows about that, but that was an abroad program.
Do you have any names or resources for anyone at Annalee High School who would know about that? Because I contacted one teacher that I guess was the old garden teacher who never got back to me. And then I got the name for the apparently current garden teacher and tried to email them and never heard back. And so I don't know if it was just like COVID time and everything was crazy and nobody knew what was happening, or does anyone know like who to get in contact with?
Kathleen, I just put my contact information in the chat to you. So call me after this thing and I'll connect you to what I know about the teachers there and stuff.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
And when we went to visit the school garden, we went through the school district office, and then they connected us with the school to set up a visit.
Okay.
This is Stephanie. I think it was Heather that said that she was having the students show their own gardens. And I wanted to just say that the kids love that, to take to be on Zoom live and take their little Chromebooks out to show their gardens. It's like the biggest hit to show off their own gardens.
I'm always asking them too, when they show me their gardens, what are you making with the produce that you're growing? So because of that nutrition piece and that cooking piece that so resonates deeply within me, I always want to make sure that that they're actually using the produce and eating the produce that they're growing. Like, for instance, we're growing tomatoes here on our deck, but my daughter won't eat them. So, I'm always curious, are they actually eating the produce that they're growing, or are they just growing the produce and then somebody else is eating it, which is totally fine too. I'm all about that. All about them just learning to grow food, especially since they can't be in their school garden. If they're at home and they're growing food with their families, that's just as valuable as being in the garden with me.
I will say that recently we were applying for a grant, and I went and I looked at the SCO website, and I learned that we have 106 public charter elementary schools in the county. And in our network of affiliates, we directly communicate via newsletter and all the other avenues that you all know about, hopefully, with 52 of them, which tells me that there are at least 52 public and public charter elementary schools in this county that either have or aspire to have a school garden program, and that there's potentially more than that as well, because they may exist but not be affiliated with us. So I just thought that was really interesting that we have a very strong interest in this county around this education, and so trying to make sure that we're keeping the not the pressure, but in a way the pressure on administrators to show that they're, because we have such an existing culture of it, that we continue to advocate for it in our schools. So
who do schools first contact when they're desiring to start that kind of program? Like, who do they reach out to first?
I mean, there's whole like guides to how to start a school garden. There's lots of books and things like that. And probably the first thing you want to do is create a parent committee and teachers, and go to administration and talk to the board. Like all of the kind of entities in a school that have to kind of come together to move something forward, like the facilities committee and people who work in facilities as well. And we can talk more about that, Kathleen, and we can also provide a lot of resources for how to start getting that going. Sorry, I'm looking over at the chat here and just seeing that there's a carbon gardening workshop tonight from Daily Acts. And this is a particular interest of mine as well right now. I'm working with some students on climate change and looking at projects and ways that we can work with climate change in our school gardens to sink carbon, and also just kind of address the need to understand our relationship to nature in that way. And it was interesting because I brought up the carbon cycle in relationship to climate change, and I had a student who typed in the Zoom chat, climate change isn't real. So there's real interesting things coming up around it, but we have to kind of persist and move forward the conversation and educate.
If you haven't seen the movie Kiss the Ground, for carbon sequestration and how agriculture and carbon sequestration are related, it's a good one.
So great. I just watched it the other night. Yeah.
I just add that the link to Daily Acts Carbon Gardening, they're also hosting free showing of Kiss the Ground. So if you fuddle around on Daily Acts, you can get access to that. And then Kiss the Ground is on Netflix, so that's another way to watch it. And they are final editing an educator version, because the full movie is an hour and a half, and the educator version will be 45 minutes, and hopefully accessible, streamable, probably early December. But yeah, a great conversation starter.
I think it's a really great conversation starter too, and I also think that I have seen some interesting critiques around it, around the cultural representation that is in the movie and film, and then some of the suggestions around how you choose the food you eat, and there's a little bit of a sense of accessibility for all of those solutions and not wanting it to, so anyway, I think it is a really great conversation, and I really value some of the curriculum that's come out around it as well prior to this movie being released, and that's available for free online if you go to Kiss the Ground, or again, it's for 6, 7, 8. And it does look at the carbon cycle and how to kind of teach through those lessons. And then, and conversation that Tor and I had that I really value is too, is if we're going to teach about climate change, we can't teach despair. We have to teach solution and understanding how to engage. And so, to be continued, this is a ripe conversation, and we're trying to figure out great ways to kind of provide access for educators and students. So. It is 12:30 officially, so this is the official ending of the gathering. Information will go out about the gathering or the seminar on the 2nd. There's also going to be a little survey going out. It really helps us know how to make these meaningful to you all. We're here to serve, so the more information we know about what you're at, where you're at, and what you need, we'll be able to provide that. So please do stay connected with us and share the work. And if you do have opportunities to connect us to some financial support and or partnerships, then we would really love to hear it, and be really helpful for us right now as well. So unless there are any last minute things, Sue, hi. Hello, Sue.
I was making lunch for my kids, so sorry I had my screen off. But
great.
thank you all so much for sharing. This is awesome. You guys work so hard, and we just appreciate you guys showing up and having this beautiful discussion. So thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, and fill out the survey whenever we get it out, please.
Well,
yeah,
get it out. Sandra, I would love for you to stay for 1 minute, and then we'll have.
Sure, no problem. Can I just do a shout out? I want to say thanks to School Garden Network. We just received funding for our Habitat Garden. Yay! We have been working on this for 2.5 years, doing planning, redesign, with students and then without students here at the finish line. And so we just got the check. It's very exciting.
Yay, so please, congratulations.
Thank you.
Excited to hear how it goes.